Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. Today we are diving headfirst into a multi-layered feud that has literally taken over social media in Nigeria. We're talking about the massive clash between Martins Otse, who you probably know as Very Dark Man, and Nollywood star Tonto Dikeh.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating collision of law, religion, social activism, and celebrity culture. So to really get to the bottom of this, we're doing a debate-style breakdown. I'm going to be walking you through Tonto Dikeh's documented public positions and her reasoning.
And I'll be laying out Very Dark Man's arguments.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet the contenders. Second, the school deliverance debate. Third, the Mohbad defamation dispute. Fourth, the forgiveness plea controversy. And finally, the unresolved legal battle. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Meet the contenders, the personalities behind the clash.
So let's start with Martins Otse, or Very Dark Man. He's built this massive, incredibly loyal following as a pragmatic, self-styled accountability critic. He constantly frames his arguments around protecting the community and finding practical, real-world solutions.
Right. And on the other side of the ring, we have Tonto Dikeh. She's a highly successful Nollywood actress and businesswoman, practically a household name for years. But recently, she made a very public declaration that she is born again, marking a major shift toward a new spiritual focus. So when you put a pragmatic accountability critic up against a huge public figure who's newly leaning into her faith, yeah, sparks are absolutely going to fly.
Looking at the timeline, the friction actually started back in 2025 with a dispute over a WhatsApp group, which pretty quickly led to a defamation suit being filed against VDM.
Exactly. Then, by December 2025, VDM is rearraigned in court on cybercrime-related charges, while around the same time, Tonto publicly announces her new born-again status.
And that exact same month, VDM publicly asks for her forgiveness.
But hold on! Fast forward to March 2026, and things escalate so fast. Tonto posts a video of a school deliverance, VDM immediately pushes back, warning her to leave the kids alone, and eventually he just outright questions her spiritual calling. It's a total snowball effect.
Which brings us to Section 2, the school deliverance debate, ministry or exploitation. Okay, so on March 6, 2026, Tonto shared videos of a deliverance session being performed on school children. And over the next couple of days, VDM responded with a very sharp, clear objection. He said, and I quote, "Leave ghetto kids alone." He anchored his whole argument firmly around protecting his community from what he saw as unnecessary theatricality. VDM's argument is basically that low-income kids are being used as props for viral spiritual performances. He points out that it always seems to be poor man's children starring in these videos. For him, what these communities actually need is practical, tangible support, not people telling them their struggles are caused by generational curses. I hear that, but looking at Tonto's position, it's completely different. For her, this visit was a genuine, unscripted evangelism outreach. She arrived, sensed something spiritually troubling happening on site, and she just reacted in the moment with prayer. From her perspective, this was simply her faith in action. So she views the backlash as a much broader societal skepticism toward public expressions of religion.
Stepping back from their specific camps for a second, this leaves us with a really massive societal tension to chew on. For sure. It makes you ask, does the very act of filming and posting a spiritual moment automatically turn it into exploitation? Or, in our modern digital age, is sharing these moments just a totally normal part of religious outreach content? It's a really tough question about intention versus optics.
Moving to Section 3, the Mohbad defamation dispute, performative activism or false claims.
So before those deliverance videos ever happened, the initial spark came from a completely different controversy. It all revolved around an all-celebrity WhatsApp group that was created to support the Justice for Mohbad campaign after the tragic passing of the Nigerian artist. VDM looked at that Justice for Mohbad group, which Tonto was a part of, and he publicly alleged that the celebrities in it were just engaging in performative activism. He basically claimed their main interest was managing their own public images rather than actually finding real answers for Mohbad.
Right, but Tonto, alongside other figures like Ayabo Ojo and Sam Clef, vehemently denied that characterization. They argued that VDM's claims were completely false and incredibly damaging to their reputations, especially regarding a cause that they genuinely cared about. And in response to his allegations, they took real-world action, filing a defamation lawsuit against him.
And this raises a really crucial question for us. Where exactly is the line between being a public accountability activist and straight-up committing defamation? I mean, it's one thing to throw accusations around in the court of public opinion, but it's an entirely different ballgame when you have to actually prove those claims in a court of law.
All right, Section 4, the forgiveness plea controversy, faith, timing, and the courtroom.
Okay, back on December 2nd, 2025. Right after Tonto announced her born-again status, VDM released a video. He publicly asked her to forgive him and to drop the pending defamation case. He even went as far as quoting the Bible directly, referencing Matthew 7:7, clearly trying to appeal to the tenets of her newly announced faith.
VDM's logic here was pretty straightforward. He was basically saying, hey, you're born again now. Your faith preaches forgiveness, so I am asking for biblical forgiveness. Drop the case.
Well, yeah, but Tonsils Camp viewed this in a completely different light. They were quick to point out that VDM literally had a court date scheduled for the very next day. So from their perspective, this wasn't a genuine apology at all. It was just opportunistic leverage to escape legal accountability. And for her supporters, that skepticism was totally validated a few months later, when VDM started publicly mocking her prayer videos and questioning her calling anyway.
So we have to ask the psychological tension question here. Can a public request for forgiveness ever be viewed as sincere if it aligns perfectly with a looming court date? And honestly, if you ask someone for forgiveness, but then later go right back to publicly criticizing and mocking them, does that retroactively void the original apology? It's a lot to think about.
Finally, Section 5, an unresolved legal battle, where things stand today.
As of right now, VDM faces cybercrime-related charges at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The status of that? Unresolved. At the exact same time, the defamation suit filed by Tonto Dikeh, Iyabo Ojo, and Sam Clef against VDM is also still pending in the Nigerian court system. Its status? Also unresolved. Neither of these serious legal matters has reached a conclusion yet. As we all know, the law moves a whole lot slower than the internet.
So with the actual courts yet to make a final decision, who ultimately wins when justice and reputation are being fiercely litigated every single day in the court of public opinion?
It's definitely a situation where the legal verdict is pending, but the social verdict is being rewritten constantly. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive on The Explainer. Definitely keep a close eye on this one because the real-world consequences are still unfolding. See you next time.